Before we dive into this week's episode, let's read our review of the week. This one is from Oko03003, who says, "Such a helpful podcast. 5 stars. I just recently started listening to this podcast. I am so grateful for it. I appreciate that the episodes aren't long and that Patricia breaks everything up into smaller topics. Just what my ADHD brain needs. I've been able to take away so many helpful tips in the last week. Thank you, Patricia." You are so welcome, my dear. And if you, Mama, have not yet rated the podcast, please head over to your app, hit 5 stars, and let me know what you think.
Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, Mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life, creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms. But, spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, Mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. Hey there, Successful Mama. It's your friend, Patricia Sung. I am so excited to be back here with you in my fancy recording studio, aka my master closet. It has been a hot minute since I have been sitting here on the floor using the kneeling pad for the bathtub as my chair and using my clothing as soundproofing so I try to get the best sound possible. It's been a minute since I've been sitting here on my floor with you. I'll be honest, I didn't think I was going to take that long of a break. When I recorded the last episode in November, I knew that we would need a minute through the holidays, and we were like cleaning up a bunch of stuff in the back end of my business and like creating systems and organizing everything and making sure my new team is fully trained. And you know that moment when you organize your closet and you pull the stuff out and then you look around and you're like, why did I do this to myself? And then you hate every decision you have ever made. And you're like, I have a bigger mess now than I did when I started. That is what I felt like in January when I had pulled all the pieces of my business out on the floor of my closet and realized I still had to put them all back and try to run a business at the same time. And so here we are. I'm now recording this at the beginning of March, like literally like 4 months later. 3 months, 4 months? Yeah, 4 months later. And I can confidently say that we have got most of the pieces back in the closet. We're still picking up some random bits and bobs and what's that? Isn't that what they say in England? Bits and bobs. And trying to find homes for the last few things. But I can say that the project was worth it. I did not feel that way 90% of the time. But you can do hard things too. You can clean out the closet. It will be okay. I survived. And I'm really glad that I'm back here with you. Because in all that cleanup and doing things like moving our Successful Mom Meetups group to Slack and cleaning up the email system and making sure people are getting all the things that they needed when you sign up for a course, that you get the information that you need, and like all those little pieces, making sure that everything was lined up and correct, and all those like foundational pieces of running a business well are in place. It's like there were many times where I'm like, this is not why I started a business. Is not so that I could figure out all the tech automations behind the scenes. Like, what I want to do is talk to you and help you and coach you. I do not want to be behind the scenes cleaning out tech automations and renaming email tags. I think that's a really good analogy for being a mom too. Like, there's a lot of parts that are like, I didn't sign up for this, man. Like, I be a mom for the stuff that I love to do. Like, I love my kids. I love when we're making great memories. But like this whole like unloading the dishwasher for the 14th time and trying not to roll my eyes while somebody complains about, you know, the orange cup over the purple cup. Like, man, this is not what I signed up for. And we can do hard things. Those pieces of our lives that are not the fun stuff, like sometimes you just gotta go. Sometimes it's just, this is in the trash pile. Move along. But when we are doing things that we know need to be done and they're not motivating, being able to dig in and figure out like, what's my actual motivation here? Why do I actually want to do this? Can make it a whole lot easier, because when we have ADHD and we don't understand the motivation behind something, you're like, why are we doing this? We're not doing it. We're not doing it. But when we can figure out why we're doing it, like, why am I cleaning out all these tech automations? Because I want to be able to help a lot of moms, and I want it to run smoothly so that when a mom comes into my space, they feel taken care of. They have everything they need. No one's confused. I want them to know like, hey, look, here's a welcome video of how successful mama meetups work. Here's the tour. You can click over here and you find this. You go here and you find that. Like, I want you to feel welcome when you come in, and you're not like, I really have to pee and I don't know where the bathroom is and I don't want to bother anybody to ask. Like, I don't want you to feel that way in my house, if you will. Like, I want you to feel super welcome and know where everything is. And that's why I did this big giant project, is because I want, when you enter my space, that you feel welcome and you feel loved and supported and can be successful here. And we can ask ourselves that same question when we do hard things as a mom. Why am I actually doing this? It's not like so that I can have a beautiful magazine-worthy house. And if it is, great. Like, that's your motivation. But if you don't care about the magazine perfect house, why are you bothering to clean off the counters? What's your motivation there? Because you want to prepare great meals for your family because your love language is food and caring for them in that way? Is it because you want to be able to find things so that you're not stressed out when you're trying to find that permission slip? Is it because you want to be able to do fun Pinterest projects on a random Tuesday and have the space to do them and it not be like, oh no, why did I do this to myself? Because now my kitchen has exploded. Like, I want you to know that you can ask yourself why and figure out the motivation to do a whole lot of things. All right, wrangling that tangent on. Today's episode is inspired by one of the moms who was on the retreat last year. She had texted the group of us and was asking like, hey y'all, I don't know what to do. Like, my son's really struggling. What do I need to ask for? Like, where do I even start? What appointment do I need? Like, what did you know in hindsight? She's like, I really want to help him and I don't know where to start. And while I can give a fair amount of information in a text message, I realized that this is one of those things that I want to talk to you about in detail, in depth, of like, when you have a kid who's really struggling, where do you start? Are you curious if you have ADHD? Like, you're still just not quite sure, is this me or not? Maybe you're getting ready for your diagnosis appointment, or maybe you want to bring it up with your GP, but you're not quite sure how to talk about it. I've put together a checklist of symptoms. That's not your average boring list of symptoms. It's the Patricia take on, from what I've seen of working with thousands of women, ways that I see these symptoms actually showing up in real life. I put it all together in a downloadable checklist, and I want you to go get it. Download the checklist, go through and check off, here are the things that show up in my life. And there's space in there for you to write in where you see these things showing up in your life. And then you can take that list to your doctor's appointment and show them, like, when I say I'm being forgetful, here's what I mean. When you ask me, like, are you hyperactive? This is how hyperactivity shows up in my life, in my brain. So that you have concrete examples and you don't freeze up. When it comes time to talk about it, you have your preparation there and you feel confident and capable in talking about you because you know yourself best. So head over to my website and you can download the free checklist at patriciasung.com/ADHD-symptoms. And that'll go right to your email and you can take that with you and be prepared for that tough conversation. Again, that's patriciasung.com/ADHD-symptoms. So I came up with 5 C's to help you get started on how to help your kid when they're really struggling. C number 1 is crisis. What is on fire at the moment? You want to start here. When your kid is really struggling, there's usually something that's a major issue, maybe multiple somethings. We want to start there because when we're in a really stressful situation, we have to put the fire out first. Then we can go back and figure out, like, well, how did we get here? How did this catch on fire? Like, and look at all the different pieces of the puzzle, but we want to start there. Now, we want to ask for help. And if you're not sure where, you can write down all the questions you have and then take a look and see where the themes are. And unfortunately, you won't get it right the first time because it is individual to your kid. And you may look back, a year from now and be like, oh, I really wish I'd started over here. You won't know that until you're a year from now and you can look back with the hindsight. So if you can ask for help from someone who's been through something similar before, please do. But if you're not sure where to start, one option may be, if school is a thing on fire, is to start with the guidance counselor. Find out who handles the special ed department. Figure out how can you get the school on your side as much as possible and work together as a team. Now, I know that this is not always possible, but this is the goal if we can, is figure out how can we get everybody working on the same team as much as possible. Sometimes schools can diagnose, it depends on where you're located, but when your child is struggling in school, we want to look at how can we get them help through accommodations? Do they need a 504 versus an IEP? And I'll link the episode on that so you can understand the difference here in the show notes. But focus in on where they're struggling and what's going to help. When we're writing accommodation lists, a lot of times there's there's 30 things that frequently show up, but some of those may not be the most impactful. What's the thing that's really going to help your kid be successful? And we want to focus on trying to get those accommodations in place. If you're struggling with something that is medical related, you can start with your pediatrician or GP. You may need a diagnosis in order to get some accommodations at school. Is your pediatrician knowledgeable enough that they can help you? Unfortunately, there are some people in the medical field who don't believe in ADHD, which is ridiculous, but also here we are. Like, if that person is not going to take you seriously, don't talk to them. Pick somebody else. Get a second opinion. You can call your insurance or look on your website for your insurance and see what they cover. You may need to go see a specialist. If you're looking to get a diagnosis for ADHD, you want to look at a neurologist, a pediatric neurologist, a psychiatrist, a pediatric psychiatrist. You can also see a psychologist, and some therapists can diagnose, some social workers may work, but those latter ones can't prescribe medicine. So if you're seeing a psychologist, like therapist, social worker, those people can't prescribe medicine. So if that's something that's going to be important to you to have that option, you'll want to make sure that you have that person who is a medical doctor and can do that. You can obviously work, with two people in tandem, but then that's more people to coordinate and more people to schedule appointments with and all that stuff. So, that may be part of your factor in finding the right expert for your kiddo. And then speaking of therapies, once you're figuring out more of what you're dealing with, which unfortunately is not usually one and done. Usually we start to peel back the onion and we're like, okay, we got anxiety on the surface. What's underneath that? Oh, look, here's some ADHD. Oh, let's pull it back somewhere. Oh, we got some depression. Oh, look at this. Now we got some dyslexia. It takes a while to find all the layers, which is, again, annoying and frustrating, but we can only talk about what we know about. So we want to start there. So other experts that we can lean on for help are therapists, occupational therapists for different kind of skills. Like if you have a lot of eating struggles, like food sensitivities, you can work with a behavioral therapist, mental health therapists, counselors. You can find an ADHD coach, an executive function coach, parent coach. But step one is to figure out what the issue is. And we can't figure out what the issue is until we put out the fire. So let's start there. What's the main concern? And what's the expert that can help us with that main concern? And move forward from there. All right, so that is C number 1, the crisis. Deal with the crisis first. C number 2 is going to be care for mom. Now, once you've dealt with the fire, you have space to start filling in the other areas. And I know that our immediate jump in is that we're going to want to take care of our kid. But it's not just taking care of your kid. It's also taking care of you. So this message is for the mom who keeps putting herself last. You can't do all of the things that are going to be on this list if you don't have capacity to do so. So it is most important for you to be on the list as well. The mom who reached out originally, one of the things she said was, she's like, I've done my best. And she listed out all these things that she had done. And she's like, but I always feel like I'm doing him wrong because I can't control my own emotions. And how am I supposed to help him control and work through his emotions if I can't control and work through my own emotions? And that's a good question. You can't help your kid when you're feeling really roller coastery. We like to think we can, but a lot of times we are in denial of how much those dominoes of not caring for ourselves are affecting everybody else. And I recently ran into one of my friend's moms at Costco, and I just ran in for a quick return. And of course, I end up chatting with her for 15 minutes in the Costco parking lot that I was supposed to be doing something else. And I was asking her how she's doing, and her husband has Parkinson's. And she is really struggling because he's just kind of accepted that life is over now. And he's not doing all the things he's supposed to do. He's not taking care of himself. He's not doing his physical therapy exercises. And Like all the things that he could be doing to make things less terrible, he's not doing. And like, while we can sit back as objective third parties and like, it's really easy to point out what he's not doing. And we also get why it's important. Like, it's easy for us outside the situation to be like, well, of course that's important. Like if he's doing his physical therapy exercises, then he can get around by himself. He doesn't have to rely on her to do all of the stuff around the house. He would be more comfortable moving around. Like, life would just be easier when you can move around and do the things for yourself. But when you're in that struggling place, a lot of times we don't realize how much those things matter. It's easy to sit there and be like, my life's really hard. I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do my physical therapy exercises and be there like boohooing in self-pity, because that's easier to do than make the hard changes. I get it. Like, I've been there a few times. And it's also hard to see when you're in there how it's affecting everybody else. I'm sure it's a lot easier to ignore than to deal with the fact that now his wife is taking care of all the house stuff. She's his nurse. She almost has to like babysit him because he can't be left alone for long if something happens. Like, she has to do all the cooking. She has to do all the errands. And him not taking care of himself and doing what he could to make his situation better is putting a really big weight on her. When you don't care for yourself, like you're not taking care of yourself, it ripples out into the people around you. And it's easy to see that when we're on the outside. But yet when we as a mom are like, oh, like my family's not getting affected by all that stuff. Like, we think that we're able to like pull it together and that all of these things, like we're able to like keep that stuff in so that it's not affecting our kids. And like, that's not true. That is a lie we tell ourselves, but it's not true. Like, if you have ADHD, there's a good chance that one of your parents had it as well, right? So you know what it's like to have a parent who is unstable, or you have a friend who's like that, or someone in your family, like you know somebody who has an unstable parent, and you know how much that affected them as kids. You know how much it affects them as adults. And like, how much would you have given as a kid to have helped your parent been in a healthier place so that they could have done the things that you wish they would do? Or maybe that's your situation right now where you're like looking at your parent being like, I wish you would do the things so that you would take care of yourself, so that like you're not screwing everybody else up. Them taking ownership of that would have made a huge difference in your life. Or if that's in a friend situation in your friend's life, like, we know this. So I want you to know, like, you can picture what your kid's going to say in 30 years. Like, hey, my mom really struggled, but she worked hard to get out of that bad place. Or like, wow, I really wish my mom hadn't caused me so many problems that I had to go to therapy for so long. Like, no, at no point is your kid going to be like, wow, I really wish my mom hadn't gone to therapy. Highly unlikely. So I don't want you to feel guilty about taking care of yourself, because it ripples out to everybody else. And I'm going to stop talking about this 1C because I got to keep moving, but I'm going to talk about it in an episode coming up, because this is a really important piece of taking care of our ADHD, is taking care of ourselves as a whole. Like, bottom line, I want you to be able to throw all that guilt out the window and know that when you're taking care of yourself, that is part of you having the capacity to be able to take care of your kid, especially when they're in a really tough spot. So I'm putting this as number 2 because I know you're going to ignore me and you're probably going to put it down at like the bottom of the list. But if I didn't say anything, you wouldn't even put it on the list. So hopefully it'll end up somewhere in the middle there. But this is really important for us as moms to hear. And I'm going to keep talking about it because it's been something that has really been on my heart for the last couple months. And this is the first episode that I talked about it. So I'm getting real bossy with you because this is really important that you take care of yourself. And when you're taking care of yourself, that's when you can actually teach your kid how to do the things that they need to do. That's C, number 2. Have you got a child that is too much? Too sensitive, too anxious, too boisterous, too loud, too anxious, too smart for their own good, too much? I am hosting a parenting workshop for parents of kids that are too much. And it's Donate What You Can, because it's a fundraiser for my kids' school. They lost funding for the GT program for next year, and so a bunch of parents have banded together, and we are raising money to be able to keep that program for our kids. So donate what you can for the Your Gifted Child series. It's a parenting workshop where we are going to cover 3 different topics. There, you can show up live or you can watch the replay. The first workshop is Behind the Brilliance, Understanding and Nurturing Gifted Minds. The second workshop is Gifted and Grounded, Parenting Strategies for Raising Exceptional Children. And the third workshop is Calm in the Chaos, Emotional Resilience for Gifted Families. So if you have a child that is too much, please come join me and donate to a very good cause You can find all the information at patriciasung.com/GT. Those are both lowercase letters, and donate for a great cause, and you get those 3 workshops. If you purchase before the workshops happen, you can attend live, or afterwards, you can watch the replay. So thank you so much for supporting my kids' school, and let's get you some parenting strategies to help you raise your out-of-the-box kid. Again, that's patriciasung.com/GT, both lowercase letters. So we have first the crisis, then 2, we have care for mom, and 3 is care for your child. I'm actually not going to say a whole lot about this category because I already know that you're probably doing 473,000 things for your kid and taking care of them, going to the therapies, conferences with teachers, figuring out the IEPs and the 504s. I know you're already doing all that stuff. Yes, there's more we can learn about it. I'm going to link some episodes in the show notes, but I know you're already doing a lot in that category. So I'm going to go to C number 4, connection. When your kid is really struggling, they need connection more than ever. They won't listen to you if they don't think you care. If they think all you care about is why aren't they doing well in school? Why are you getting in all these fights? Why are you getting zeros? Blah, blah, blah. They begin to tune out a lot of what we're saying. And what they need to hear in that moment is, I love you. I care about you. You can be disappointed in their choice and love them a lot. And they need to hear that. They're I don't have to agree with everything that you're doing in order to love you. I can be really proud of you and want you to make better choices. They need to hear how much you love them, how much you care about them, because otherwise they don't listen to anything else. And if they're in that point right now where they're not listening to anything that you're saying, who else can connect with them? Do you have an important person that you respect and care about that they can connect with? If it's an aunt or uncle, a neighbor, somebody who's a friend of the family, one of the coaches that an activity they're involved in, someone from church, Boy Scout leader, Girl Scout leader, some other adult that you trust that can connect with them so that they have someone to talk to. And if it can be you, how can you spend that quality time with them? How can you be there listening to them without correcting them? Yes, we got a lot to say because we're moms, but how can you spend that time with them where they know you genuinely care? You love them a lot. You want to be there for them. That's incredibly important when they're struggling in a crisis, is knowing how much you and the other people around them love them, care about them, are glad that they're here. And they need to hear that a lot. This one is especially hard for me because I'm not a words of affirmation person. So I have to work on this and make a really concerted effort to say these things out loud. It's really hard for me. So if that's hard for you too, I see you. How can you connect with them in a way that they know how much you love them in spite of whatever else is going on? That really matters. So number 4 is C for connection. And the last C, number 5, is confidence. When kids are really struggling, especially if they're struggling in school or with friends, the things that carry a lot of weight or important to them, they need to have a place where they feel confident. So if they're not doing well at school, what do they do well at? Where can they feel confident? Where can they do well? They need a place to do well. Sometimes that's something that we don't really want them to do, like video games, but if they can feel confident there, how can you nurture that in a safe and healthy way? Where can they feel successful? Where can you boost their confidence in a sport, an activity, music, art, the way that they care for other people? Where can you help them see how they are good at something and their life is just not, if you think about in kid view or teenager view, it's my life is awful and everything's terrible, which I feel like sometimes too. Where can they feel successful and build their confidence so that it's not 100% I am terrible at everything? So to sum it up, when your kid is struggling, we want to look at the 5 C's. What's in crisis? Start there. Next is care for you, mom. 3 is care for your kid. 4 is connection, that they know that they are loved and they are cared for and other people are glad that they are here. And number 5 is confidence. How do we make sure they have a place where they feel successful amongst all of the struggle? So mama, this is a really crappy time when our kids are really struggling. And so I want to give you a big hug and let you know that this is a season. Things will be different soon. But right now in this season, I see you. It's really hard when your kid is struggling and you can't fix it immediately. I want you to know that I'm here for you. I see you. I love you. I'm so glad that you're back here with me today. And I'm giving you big giant hugs. for the week coming up, knowing that you are an awesome mom trying your best, and that's what matters. I will talk to you soon. Successful Mama. For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.